Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dynasty After Dark. I'm your host, Calvin Timms, and I'm excited to finish up the offseason recap of the NFC South, and I'm going to be doing that with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here today. If this is your first episode, thank you for checking out the podcast. But quickly, you can find me over on Twitter at TDC_Calvin. My co-host, Dale, at Dynasty_Dale. He'll be back tomorrow with the NFC East. We're going through that. Dale's been killing it with a lot of the shorts right now. So if you've checked out the channel because of the shorts, appreciate that. And if you're checking out some of the longer content because of the shorts, well, appreciate you guys for that as well. But yeah, we are just rolling through the offseason recap, and I think we should be done on Thursday this week, first week of August here, and we're going to cap it off with a mock draft on Friday, and we're going to be rolling back into more of a regular schedule here the next couple of weeks, a couple of days, and yeah, we're figuring out what we want to do for in-season content. So if you have any thoughts, please hit us up in the comments down below. While you're there, if you can, like the video or subscribe to the channel. We appreciate you guys for that as well. So that said, we're going to just jump into the offseason for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And it's been a wild ride for this team. And, you know, when you look at it as a whole, I think you have to start with Tom Brady and his retirement and what the impacts of that are, because Tom Brady leaves, you know, they move on from their offensive coordinator last year. What was his name? Brian Leftwich, and they moved to a new guy. His name is Dave Canales, I believe. And we have no idea what his coaching staff is really going to be like, what his offense is really going to look like, because Dave Canales, he comes over from the Seattle Seahawks. He was the quarterback's coach, which with Geno last year, it looked really, really good. But from 2020 to 2021, he was the passing game coordinator for Seattle. Quarterback's coach before that from 2018 to 2019. So he's been with Seattle for a while now, and it's kind of an odd situation because there was always the conversations of let Russ cook and things like that. So was Dave Canales kind of behind that, or was it more of the OCs that he was working with? Was he kind of constrained by those guys? So I don't really know what to expect from him in this offense, which, you know, you got a new quarterback, you got a new offensive system, you've still got Todd Bowles at the top there, and it's going to be just an interesting situation from a coaching side of things. You couple that with Tom Brady's retirement, you're going over to probably Baker Mayfield, who they signed this last offseason, and it's just going to be a very interesting year for the Buccaneers. I think a lot of the Buccaneers fans, from what I've heard, are just really going into it with an expectation of being bad, and that this team is going to be in contention for, you know, the Drake Mays or the Caleb Williams of next offseason. So with all that said, let's jump into some of the free agents that they were able to re-sign, or, you know, some of the guys that they were able to bring back. I do think that this defense should be just fine. If you look at who they were able to re-sign on the team, Jamel Dean, you know, they brought back Levante David. The one problem is they brought back a lot of older guys, and it makes me a little nervous. It seems like they're kind of trying to tread water instead of committing to, you know, retooling the roster, essentially. You don't really want to be half foot in, half foot out with the NFL right now. It's either all or nothing, right? You want to be really good or really bad, and you want to try and improve yourself by resetting your cap and getting a lot of young guys or things like that. And it just feels like a lot of the Buccaneers players right now are just very old, and that's where it's a little concerning there. And again, I think that's why people are expecting this team to not really be great. They, you know, they went all in, pushed all the chips in with Tom Brady to try and go get another Super Bowl with him. So it all makes sense. You know, you're just kind of paying the price there for that. But, you know, they lost guys like Tom Brady. They lost Akeem Hicks, another good player on the defensive side of the ball. Leonard Fournette. Julio Jones is hopefully finally retiring. First ballot Hall of Fame, Julio Jones, but he's just not been the same Julio the last couple of years. Carl Nassib, Logan Ryan. So a lot of guys that are no longer with this team, and they're all in their 30s except for Fournette, who's pretty dang close, right? So I think that they're trying to shed some of the elderly vets on this team, but that's where it's very odd to me that they re-signed someone like Levante David, the linebacker on that side of the ball. It's conflicting messaging, I guess, is the only downside. But on the flip side, they did bring in someone like Baker Mayfield. They brought in John Walford as well, both from the Rams. So that's going to be an interesting combination there. But not really other names being brought in. It was mostly just guys leaving the team. They're trying to slowly reset this roster, but again, that's where it's just a little concerning that they're not doing it quick enough. So you couple that with the actual NFL draft. Round 1, pick number 19. Unfortunately for the Bucs, they won the NFC South last year. And, if Tom Brady was going to retire and not come back and the team is going to be left in an odd situation, you'd really hope that they would not be at pick 19. But maybe this sets them up for, again, Caleb Williams next year with how the roster's kind of sitting. But they take Calijah Kancey, and Calijah Kancey was a very good player. A lot of people comped him to I can't even think of his name on the, I'm going to think of it later, but the defensive tackle for the Rams, the Hall of Fame guy, I can see his face, I just can't see his name, but he's a defensive tackle out of Pittsburgh. He's a smaller guy, though. I just think it's a little concerning, but it is what it is. They're really trying to keep that defensive line pretty strong and healthy, which is what Todd Bowles kind of likes for his teams. But I just am a little concerned about some of these players there. All right, in round 2, they take Cody Mauch, an offensive tackle out of North Dakota State, trying to replace Donovan Smith, their other tackle who left and went to the Kansas City Chiefs. Round 3, Yaya Diaby, defensive end out of Louisville. Round 5, Servoke Dennis, linebacker out of Pittsburgh. They also took Payne Durham, tight end out of Purdue. My Purdue alum, no big deal. But in round 6, they took Josh Haynes, cornerback out of Kansas State. Trey Palmer, this one I thought was kind of interesting, wide receiver out of Nebraska. And then Jose Ramirez, defensive end out of Eastern Michigan. So all in all, not a terrible draft, but not a sexy draft at the same time, right? And that's where this team is just very odd to me. And I do believe that there's a lot of potential here long term, but you've got guys on this team who are getting older and older and older, and just a full reset feels like it's coming, but it's not quite here yet. So defensive wise, I think that they're going to be okay. I don't think they're going to be an elite defense by any means. I think they'll be middle of the pack, probably 20 to 15, somewhere in that range. They have enough talent, but they just are, again, getting older, and they're not replenishing the talent as quickly as they are hoping. Aaron Donald, by the way, defensive player. Calijah Kancey, he's been comped to Aaron Donald. Small defensive tackle, but, Aaron Donald is arguably one of the best of all time to do it. So I knew it was going to come back to me eventually. But the defense for the Bucs, they should be just fine. Not anything great, not anything bad, but middle of the road, which means that this offense is going to have some opportunities, but that's where it kind of gets sketchy, right? You look at the offensive line. Last year, they were kind of banged up, and they were never able to get fully healthy. They've got Tristan Wirfs. They've got, Cody Mauch, who they took this last year. They have guys like Ryan Jensen, who's still a very good player. I think he almost wanted to retire, though, so he might be nearing the end of the road as well. They need another tackle, it feels like. They need another guard. Matt Filer is probably the other starting guard right now, but they could definitely use a little bit of help on the offensive line. They could use definitely some depth there as well, in my opinion. So that's what scares me a little bit mostly about this offense. You've got Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield competing for the starting quarterback position. I think Baker's going to win it, but we've seen Baker with a bad offensive line. It is not pretty. Baker's not the best quarterback with a healthy offensive line. You make that line bad, and it is going to completely fall apart. So that is what scares me a little bit there. But I do think that Baker has enough talent compared to Trask, who was I think he was a 3rd-round pick, if I remember right, or maybe a 2nd-round pick. I don't really think that there's a lot of opportunity there personally, but it is what it is. You can definitely be proven wrong by someone like Kyle Trask. But yeah, Baker, I unfortunately don't know if he can ever return to his form of 2020. I would say it was his best season. I think that was the first year of the Kevin their Brown. Man, it is a early morning for me. My brain is just going to mush. But the Browns head coach, Kevin Stefanski. Sorry, my brain is just kind of mush right now. But Kevin Stefanski came over to the Browns in 2020. Good year with Baker. Baker was not elite that year, but had 3,500 yards, 26 touchdowns, only 8 interceptions. Had 54 rushing attempts as well, which was pretty nice, but didn't really do much with all that. But he was just not able to really show off the potential of the number 1 overall pick. Then in 2021, it kind of fell apart. It was not pretty. Baker ultimately gets benched and then gets booted from the team. Last year he goes over to the Carolina Panthers, starts the season with them. They end up not liking him. He wasn't very good with them. The offensive line was pretty bad early last year for the Panthers. Goes over to the Rams, who have a terrible offensive line. First game out, he actually is able to win against the Las Vegas Raiders. He's not really good for the rest of the season either. So it's just, I don't know if we're ever going to be able to expect anything from Baker Mayfield. I do think that they're going to be in contention for the number 1 overall pick. I think they're going to have some fun games, but for the most part, it's going to be pretty bad for this team. And if you're a fan of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I do think that's going to be an unfortunate situation. So jumping over to the running backs, and this is where I think a lot of the conversation is. I think that Keyshawn Vaughn, Rachaad White, those are the top 2 right now. Sean Tucker's back there as well. Chase Edmonds is on this team. I think the way it's going to open up the season, Rachaad White's going to be the number 1 for this offense. I think right behind him, though, is going to be Keyshawn Vaughn, and I think that Sean Tucker ultimately will start the season as the number 3 guy. Now, Rachaad White is an interesting player because he's someone that's kind of jumping up people's boards a little bit, and I'm not entirely sure if it's warranted. I think it might be just projection, but he's currently the RB24 overall, and if you look at what his trade value is, it's like Rachaad White or DeAndre Swift, Rachaad White or Miles Sanders. He's in the same range as all these guys. Rachaad White or Zach Charbonnet, right? In terms of picks, he's the 201 to 202 in a lot of rookie drafts. And that seems pretty high, in my opinion, for someone who, had only a couple games above like double digits. So it does make me a little nervous, but where he was very useful last year was the passing game, right? He had 58 targets, 50 receptions. You like to see that a little bit, and especially with what Baker was able to do with someone like Kareem Hunt for a lot of their career, there is some potential here for Rachaad White as a receiving back. Now, I don't know if it's going to be warranted that he's going to be a top 24 running back, especially at 24 years old. He's a little older already, and I think that this team is going to be trying to really revamp this offense pretty quickly and get a lot of young and good talent in it over the next couple of years. So Rachaad White feels like a little bit of a stopgap. They're going to use him and then let him go, but I could be wrong there. So let me know your thoughts down below. Keyshawn Vaughn, I once believed, but I'm not ever going to put my my life on the line there for Keyshawn Vaughn. I don't think that he has the trust of the team, and I don't think that they're really going to utilize him from a fantasy perspective at all. And then Sean Tucker is just a name to keep an eye on, but again, he was an undrafted free agent. He had an injury, so I'm not loving that potential either, but, it is what it is. So let's jump over the receivers here. This team is kind of just sad to talk about because there's so many good names, but it feels like a very poorly run situation right now. And I don't know if that's just me being a hater. You can let me know, but it just doesn't feel exciting to talk about any of these guys. When they had Brady, a lot of these players were exciting to talk about. So just some thoughts there. Now, wide receiver wise, you've got Mike Evans, you've got Chris Godwin. Trey Palmer is a little interesting down there as well. Raheem Jarrett has been showing out a little bit in training camp. You've still got Russell Gage. So it's a very good combination of receivers on the team. They've still got K. Dotton as the not rookie tight end from last year. But quickly, I wanted to talk about the receivers here and give my thoughts on some of these guys. Mike Evans is older, and a lot of people are talking about him and his value and all that stuff. But if you look at where he's ranked right now, I do think that he's probably a little low. He's only 29.9, so he'll be 30 here at the start of the season. But wide receiver 40 overall seems a little silly to me. He's being evaluated as like the 202. If you need a win now player who has some potential upside, I do like Mike Evans in this offense, and I think that he can definitely have some long-term ability as well. Like, let's imagine that they go and get Caleb Williams next year. I think that Mike Evans and Caleb Williams could be just fine together. That's a good weapon for a young rookie quarterback, which I think is going to be the route that they're going to try and go over the next couple of years, right? Conversely, you've got Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin is barely ranked above Mike Evans. He's wide receiver 32. Now, Chris Godwin at 32 overall is nuts to me. Like, I don't understand what people are seeing with Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin started last year banged up, right? He's coming off the ACL injury, started the first month of the season really, really slowly, and then really ramped it up at the end of the year. He still finished as the wide receiver number 19 last year on a bad Bucs offense. They could not move the ball effectively. They could not score touchdowns, and it was just not a good situation. And Godwin was still the 19th overall wide receiver. Now, I'm not saying that Chris Godwin's going to be a top 5 guy, but last year he had 142 targets. And, you've got a new offensive coordinator who was with Seattle with their passing game for the last decade, basically, right? Receivers coach to passing game coordinator to all that stuff, right? Quarterbacks coach and all that. Chris Godwin had 142 targets last year. Are we really thinking that Baker's not going to be able to pepper him with targets? You go back to Jarvis Landry, and I think this is kind of the comp that I would have for Chris Godwin with Baker Mayfield, right? Baker's first year, 2018, Jarvis Landry had 149 targets. Now, he only had 81 catches that year, so he finished as the wide receiver number 18. But his second year, 2019, he had 138 targets and, 83 catches. Yardage went up, but roughly the same. Finished as the wide receiver 12, and this can kind of ebb and flow every single year. But are we really thinking that Chris Godwin, who is the number one target on this offense, or the possession role, is not going to be able to get 140 targets this year? And he's got such good hands. He's got better hands than someone like a Jarvis Landry, in my opinion. So you're telling me that he's not going to be able to get around 100 receptions again this year just because it's Baker? Like, what are we doing here? And I think that the yardage could probably go up. Maybe it's kind of variable, right? But if he gets around 100 catches again, and it could be more this year, but if he gets around 100 catches, I could see him having 950 to 1,100 yards, somewhere in that range. I could see him going back to his mean in touchdowns. He only had 3 last year. I could see him getting back up to 5, 6, 7. And you get up to 5 touchdowns, all of a sudden he's a top 15 wide receiver, top 12. And I just think that him going at wide receiver 32 is absolutely bonkers to me. I just do not understand that whatsoever. So if there's a trade target in any of your leagues right now, it would be Chris Godwin. I do believe that genuinely. I have Chris Godwin in quite a few leagues, and there's been people that have been trying to lowball me, it feels like, in terms of their offers on him. And I'm not interested. Like the 111 or Chris Godwin. So you're saying, would you rather have Josh Downs or Chris Godwin? Pretty easily, Chris Godwin, because in most one quarterback leagues, you're talking about Josh Downs at that range, or you're talking about, maybe a Devin Achane or someone like that. I'd much rather have the wide receiver Chris Godwin, especially, again, if they get a Drake May or a Caleb Williams or one of these type of players. I think that the potential for Chris Godwin to have a nuclear season next year is still there. He's only 27 years old, so I think people are kind of just overreacting to Chris Godwin right now, and what they're really feeling about him. I can get the downness on 2023 specifically, but I think he's still going to be fine. I still think he's going to be a top 20 wide receiver that's going to help your team, and then he's still got that long-term value as well. So that is my thoughts. Cade Otton, again, we'll touch on him quickly. He is an interesting player to talk about as well. Cade Otton, he is currently the tight end number 27. I do think that there's a little bit of potential here. If you look at what he was able to do last year, with Tom Brady, he was slowly starting to come on in the back half. He was a rookie. Rookie tight ends never really do a ton, but he did have 65 targets as a rookie and 42 catches. Now, you want to see the yardage come up, but again, the whole Bucs offense last year could not move the ball whatsoever. So, maybe Baker can get that up a little bit higher, but it all kind of relies on Baker being decent. And I do think that Baker can be decent. I just don't think he's ever going to be elite for this unit. So again, I think that there's just a little bit of potential there for Cade Otton. He's estimated at less than the 312 in rookie value. I think that he could definitely return on that pretty well. I could see him finishing in as the tight end 15 to 18 this year, which isn't great for the tight end position. Don't get me wrong. I'm not holding my breath for that. But if you can get him up there this year, again, I believe that they're going to be able, unless Baker can really jump back to number 1 overall pick form, I think that this team is going to have a lot of long-term potential with a young quarterback. They're going to be highly ranked and in the draft, in my opinion. They're going to lose the NFC South this year, probably. I'd probably give them like a 5%, 10% chance. Probably like 5% chance of winning the NFC South or even making playoffs. So, I do think that there's a lot of potential long-term, but it is a little depressing right now. The team is kind of in transition. You won the Super Bowl just a couple years ago. Now you're kind of paying the price with all those contracts. Same as what the Rams are going through right now. And that's just kind of the price you got to pay to go when you sell out to go win a Super Bowl with a lot of older vets. So there are going to be better days ahead, but I do still think that there's some valuable dynasty assets for this team that people are downgrading just because of new offensive coordinator, Baker Mayfield, all these things. So that's my thoughts on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. If you can, one last time, like the video. It takes like 10 seconds, helps us out a lot, hugely. If you can, subscribe to the channel as well. We're going to be continuing to drop a ton of content the rest of this offseason and then going into training camp or into the actual NFL season as well. Again, if you have any thoughts or anything you want to hear in season from a dynasty perspective, let us know and we can start looking at putting some of that content together as well. But one last time, you can find me over on Twitter at TDC_Calvin, my co-host, who will be back tomorrow on Twitter at Dynasty_Dale. And we appreciate it. Hit us up with any questions you guys might have. But until next time, thank you guys so much for listening and have a good night.